So, congratulations on your acceptance into pre-dental and pre-nursing. These are two of our very popular programs that we offer here at Eastland-Fairfield. One common misconception, and Mr. Stidham is here. As I said, I'm Mrs. Groves, the assistant superintendent. I handle all things academic and curriculum. Mr. Stidham oversees the pre-nursing. Do you do pre-dental as well? Okay, pre-nursing only, but I'll let him stay for this meeting, okay? But there are certain things, because of the nature of this work, I need you to understand that these are not required by Eastland-Fairfield. But when you are on these two specific programs, you will be working with actual patients. You will practice on mannequins, because we don't want you to, your first time going out is doing a skill, is when you're actually with a patient. You will practice in-house on mannequins, but when you leave Eastland-Fairfield, you will do clinical rotations, both dental, pre-dental, and pre-nursing. When we go out to the site, let's talk about pre-dental. Pre-dental goes to OSU. They work with dental students at Ohio State University. Ohio State University has expectations for students, our students, going there to work on their site. And I'm going to read it to you because I want you to hear verbatim what they say. Again, this is from the entity, our business partner. The other thing I need you to realize, our business partners are not required to allow us to come onto their sites. They are saying, if you want your students to be able to earn this credentialing, and they have to have this experience, we will let them have this experience on our site. So for pre-dental, there's a little form here, and I highlighted a couple of things. I'm just going to read it to you. You will get a copy of this as we get closer to the school year, to next school year. But again, this is informational. We want you to be aware of what does it look like for your student coming into pre-dental or pre-nursing. And I'll be point blank honest, COVID has a piece to play in this as well. We've been asked questions, we've had conversations. As Dr. Miller said, there are school expectations, but once we step outside of the school setting, we are very much on the business side of things. Okay? So for pre-dental, it says, in order to participate in dental assisting at the Ohio State College of Dentistry, pretty exciting opportunity, I have met the following standards to participate in the clinical. First is immunity to hepatitis B, or I've received the 3 doses of the vaccination. Second, measles, mumps, and rubella. I've received the doses or I'm immune. Immunity, chickenpox, the 2 doses, or I can show immunity. Flu vaccinations for the current flu season, and they give dates of when you have to have these by. A negative tuberculosis PPD test, checks X-ray, or QFT test required annually. This is for pre-dental. So there are some pretty rigid requirements for students to be able to participate in this experience. Again, we want to be very transparent and make you all aware of what those are, okay? The last thing on this list down here, again, this is a requirement for the OSU experience. It says completion of 2 doses of the Pfizer or Moderna COVID vaccination, or 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccination at least 2 weeks prior to first on-site visit, okay? Now, for the last year we got in the discussion of, well, can't you, the school, exempt my student from the vaccination? As we have consulted many times with our legal counsel, we do not require the vaccination. To be a student here at Eastland-Fairfield, you don't have to be vaccinated. That is not a requirement. And since we don't require it, we can't turn around and say, well, I'm going to exempt you from it, but we don't require it. Legally, we can't do that, okay? We have had students say, I'm not doing that Can I still participate in the program? Our response is, you can, but you will not be able to complete the program with the certifications that you're expecting you're going to get, because you can't complete the curriculum without these experiences. Okay? So now let's talk pre-nursing. It got real heavy here real quick. Okay? So let's talk pre-nursing. Pre-nursing also has vaccination requirements. It also has a physical form that needs to be completed. So let's talk about the physical form first. Just a very basic form that your student will receive for you to take to your physician for them to sign off on. One of the questions on here states, is there any medical health reason this student should not provide direct care or activities to patients? As I said, when you were on these clinical sites, if you're in pre-nursing, your student will actually be taking care of a resident. The teacher will not be there during the clinical rotation. The teacher will be on site, but they are not going to be by your student one-on-one. They will be paired with another student. They're working together. The clinical coordinator is going around and making sure, are they following safety procedures? They'll be expected to show skills on the patients. Okay, so it's like for 4 days, they are actually going out and working in the nursing home. That's part of their clinical experience. When Dr. Miller was talking about, we were talking to them in the hallway, they were exhausted. They finished their 3-day clinicals and they came back and they were exhausted. You are working on site. You're not working with mannequins, real people, real residents. You are giving showers. You are bathing. We need to be clear on that, okay? So what do we need? You need the physical form signed. If it is indicated, if your physician says they can't provide direct patient care, that's going to be an issue, okay? Because again, you will be providing direct patient care. In terms of vaccinations for pre-nursing, again, it says the state of Ohio requires all people working with older adults in nursing homes to be screened for tuberculosis, TB, and there's a very specific TB test that has to be had. You'll get the specifics of this later on. This is just informational and generalities for you. It also states the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, has provided standards for employees in this area requiring participation in an immunization plan for hepatitis B. You've got to be immune or have the vaccinations. You must have a physical exam. You must have the hold harmless agreement. And they are waiting on, each year we wait to what are our facilities telling us, all of our business partners. When we say, hey, we'd like to bring students to get a clinical experience on your site, if they say, okay, then we have to find out what are your COVID vaccination protocols for our students. Last year, as soon as they informed us, we sent it out and we said, you are required to have your vaccinations completed by this date. And we have to hold pretty firm on that date. So let me make sure I'm not missing anything else in terms of pre-nursing. Okay, so let's go back to when are these expectations and the vaccinations supposed to be completed? For dental assisting, there is one date. They will say everything has to be done here. And I think dental assisting, they've worked it so the whole class can go together and get this experience. Pre-nursing is a little different. It goes in waves. We have 4 different pre-nursing labs. They can only go out by Ohio Department of Health. They can only go out at 8 at a time with 1 clinical coordinator to do the observation and the assessments. So they go out in waves. But we have predetermined that for pre-nursing, all of those requirements, the physical, the immunizations, all the paperwork, the hold harmless, everything has to be turned in by December 1. We do this so that way everyone is on the same playing field. Because if we did not give one solid date, everyone would be saying, well, then just schedule me for the later one and I'll get it here in a bit. Well, schedule me later. Nope, everyone has that hard deadline of December 1st to get all of their paperwork and everything completed. The other piece, Juniors here at Fairfield in the pre-nursing program earn their STNA, their state-tested nursing assistant certification at the end of their junior year. There is state time required for that program, meaning I'm in pre-nursing, the teacher says we're on state time. If I am absent a day, I may be excused and that's okay. But then I have to make up the hours I missed. So if I missed 3 hours of instruction, I gotta come in 3 hours sometime, before school, after school, sometime with my teacher to make up those 3 hours, even if I was excused. Doesn't matter, you have to have the set number of hours of instruction before you can even go out on clinicals. Okay, now I know I got really heavy there for a bit, but again, as Dr. Miller said, we want you to be aware. We've had conversations for the past 2 years now. We want our parents and guardians to be aware of what our business partners are saying and what our students are required to have to be able to sit for some of these credentials. Anything else?
It's important that you understand, I also spend more time talking to lawyers than anybody else here. There are no exceptions. If the location says COVID vaccine, or you're not going. It's not often, we've had this throughout the last couple years. My child's healthy. The elderly people who live in these settings are not, and COVID is deadly for them. And I'm gonna tell you, I speak from experience, my mother died of COVID in 2020 in a long-term care facility. It's not about how healthy you are, it's how fragile people who live in long-term care. And as a family member, their family members, as if it was your family member, expect everything to be done to keep them safe. It's health care. We're not exploring a career, we're learning a career, and those are the rules in healthcare. Currently, you cannot get into a BSN, RN, LPN program in the state without a COVID vaccine. So if you want to be a nurse, this is the reality of being a nurse. I realize companies and agencies may have made exceptions. As Shelley said, our attorneys have been clear. We cannot make an exception for something we don't require. And I cannot, in good conscience, do that, because let's say what happens when a student takes COVID into the center and we gave them an exception and an elderly patient there gets sick and dies. There will be lots of lawyers involved then, okay? We cannot put people at risk. Sometimes it becomes, well, my child, it's about the patients and the residents. So when I say no exceptions, and we've had a number of parents have attorneys call us, there are no exceptions. There are none. And we're not telling you this because we don't want you to come. Again, we want you fully informed to make the decision that is right for you and your student. We want you to come, but just know, again, lots of attorney calls. There has yet to be an exception, and there won't be. Now, will that requirement go away next year? Possibly. I don't see that happening in healthcare anytime real soon. So that's something to be aware of.
So before I open it up for questions, for pre-nursing, they do their clinical experience, all these rotations during junior year. So everything that I listed, the physical, hepatitis, TB test, all of that needs to be done by December 1st of your junior year, because clinicals start as soon as we get back in January, we start sending out clinical rotations, okay? Any questions? If you have specific personal questions, we can talk about them up here, but if for the good of the group. Yes, sir. All that this says as of right now, that just jumped up on me. All that it says right now on the paperwork that we received from our partners, it says 2 doses of Pfizer or Moderna, or 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson at least 2 weeks prior to the first site visit, is all that we have received as yet. Now again, we will renew our partnerships over the summer. If that changes, it will be communicated to our accepted students as soon as we are aware of that.
And they have to have a flu shot as well?
Yep, and pre-nursing, Sorry, I'll go back and forth. Again, as of right now, it does not say flu shot. It says pre-nursing specifically for dental assisting. It could change. Dental assisting or pre-dental specifically says the flu shot, flu vaccination. Nursing does not, but again, depending on the partnership, they absolutely could make that a requirement as we're renewing our partnerships for the next school year.
And based on what's happening health-wise in the country.
Yes, in the community.
They may say influenza is required because we have a surge. In fact, here in the spring, there was a huge surge of influenza, and a lot of hospitals were saying, no, they were really limiting visitors yet.
Yep.
So just be aware, the context can change.
Yes, ma'am.
So pre-nursing is a 2-year program.
Pre-nursing absolutely is a 2-year program.
And what certification do we get senior?
Patient care technician, a PCT, or they have different pathways you can take. There is a work-based learning pathway where at the beginning of your senior year, you take the mental health course, you go through it really quick, and then you're out on work-based learning. So we've got some different pathways you can choose as a senior depending on what you would like to do. Okay, good question. Yes, ma'am.
Does any of those include LPN or LPN? Is it a path that can take them there?
You are good. Great question. We are working with our adult workforce programs to develop an LPN program where our students would come in as a junior, earn their STNA, as a senior, earn their PCA, and then transition right into our LPN program through our adult workforce development. We are in the process of setting that up now. That was one good lead-in. That was a great lead-in.
It's slated to start.
This is
LPN will start this fall.
LPN is getting ready to start in the fall. We will do a STNA over the summer, correct, for adults? For adult STNA, and then everything will start in the fall for them. But it's going to get up and going. They'll be ready. Everything will be good. Other questions? Okay. Again, this was just so you can make an informed decision about your student. We don't want you to be surprised about any information that we will be sharing at the beginning of the school year. Again, if you have any questions, reach out to Mr. Stidham. He is the keeper of all information. Mr. McGregor, the principal, or myself, and we will make sure that we get you an answer as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much. And students, we look forward to seeing you in August, if not before.